For any fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the idea of a video game set in the world of the show would be nothing short of a wet dream. And in 2023, it seemed that that dream had finally come true, with the release of Avatar: The Last Airbender, A Quest for Balance. Whew, that's a chunky title. But there was one catch. The game is god-awful. And after seeing it being torn apart online by fans and critics alike, I decided to see what all the hype was about, and challenged myself to reach my own Avatar state and hunt down the Platinum Trophy. With a terrifying 0.3% of players having achieved this before me, I knew that this would be no easy task. Before we get started, if you're someone who is constantly chasing the endorphins of that trophy unlock sound, just a kid. I got a trophy! Just like me, then make sure you leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for a brand new trophy or achievement hunt every single week. And now, without much further ado, welcome to this week's Endorphin Hunt. Let's get into it. The game opens with a sequence that I'm sure needs no introduction, but may still be a bit of a shock to watch.
Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished.
Yeah, I wish I could say the animation gets better. The game overall is a retelling of the events of the original series, with each book receiving 8 chapters to play through. But a major difference here is that the story is being told by Iroh, Bumi and Pakku to a theatre director named Zhong Ying, who wishes to tell a more accurate version of The Boy in the Iceberg. You may remember the Ember Islands player's version from the series, which is actually specifically referenced and ridiculed for historical inaccuracies. Our first bit of gameplay comes in the form of a prologue, where we're taught the basics as Aang makes his way through the air temple in order to find Appa and escape a storm. No, isn't he adorable? Unfortunately, they are unsuccessful and plunge into the ocean below, where they stay frozen for 100 years until they are found by Katara and Sokka. And with that, we reach the start of the story and earn our first trophy of the run, Initiate. Now normally in these trophy hunt videos, I will run through the story of the game as it progresses, highlighting the various trophies we unlock along the way. But because this game is literally a direct retelling of the Avatar series, I figured that might not be the best approach to this video. If you're a fan of the show, you already know what happens. And if you're not, honestly, the storytelling here is so disjointed that you'll just end up confused and underwhelmed. I'll get into my overall thoughts on the story and break down exactly why that is later on. So instead, in this video, I will be focusing on the progression of the hunt and touching on various parts of the game when it features a trophy to be unlocked. I'm also including chapters in the video to help you navigate through each trophy, which is a first for the channel, so let me know if you like them and want to see them become a regular thing. As we progress through the levels, we face sections in which we're doing one of 4 things: exploring an area, completing a pathic bending challenge, taking part in an animal race, or fighting pretty much anyone and everyone really. We start the game with Aang, Katara and Sokka as our 3 playable characters, and each of them has a specific trophy attached to their fighting style that we need to unlock. The most generic of the 3 is for Aang, which requires us to launch 20 enemies, unlocking AIRLIFT. To be fair, you could probably do this with any of the characters, but it's easiest to do early on with Aang's special ability, which basically just yeets anyone in its path. For Sokka, we need to use his boomerang to deliver the final blow to an opponent. When we do, we unlock Trusty Boomerang. And then finally, and the easiest of the 3, is Katara's. By using her healing ability on our teammates for the first time, we are rewarded with Healing Touch. Stepping away from the combat for a moment, throughout the game we can find various cart vendors dotted around the levels. These act as our shops, at which you can buy healing items, power-ups, and upgrades. I can tell you now that I didn't buy a single healing item or power-up throughout my entire playthrough, mostly because they're quite plentiful if you're breaking boxes and opening chests anyway, but also because they seemed completely pointless. Aside from the occasional heal, I never found myself needing a power-up during a fight, and only used the speed potions because it made traipsing around the map a little bit less painful. But I was always very interested in the upgrades. The game offers 2 types for you to use: Pay Show Tiles and Bending Scrolls. The former you will find in chests and are also awarded for completing various challenges, such as the pathic bending sections. These are used in each character's skill tree, which upgrade abilities and factors specific to them. The latter type, the scrolls, are awarded to you for completing chapters and are also available to buy in shops. The 4 types, air, water, earth, and fire, will provide a more general upgrade to each bending ability for whichever characters can use them. When we purchase our first one from a shop, we earn ourselves Scroll Call. Upon reaching the final chapter of each book, Aang and his friends will face off against various iconic villains from the show. Admiral Zhao in Book 1, Zuko and Azula for Book 2, and finally Firelord Ozai in Book 3. There are a number of mini-boss fights throughout the game as well, but these 3 are the ones recognized in our trophy hunt. To finish out Book 1, we play as Zuko and, once we've taken down Zhao, are awarded with Put Out the Fire before progressing on with the story. In Book 2, we finally meet and get to play as everyone's favourite character, Toph. Listen, I know she's your favourite character, alright? She's everyone's favourite, so don't try and lie to me. Similarly to the 3 mentioned earlier, Toph also has a trophy to unlock by using her special ability. Fans of the show will be well aware that Toph is blind, and uses her earthbending to see. In the game, this forms her special ability, Seismic Sense, which allows her to mark weaker structures that other characters can't see. When we use it for the first time, we earn That Sounds Right. We also earned a couple more combat-related trophies while working our way through Book 2. Each character has the ability to block with a shield, which they can then also launch forward at enemies. I didn't use this much during my playthrough, preferring instead to just take the approach of hitting and dodging, but I did focus on blocking 20 projectiles with the shield before abandoning it entirely, earning On Your Guard for doing so. And then we get on to the first real problem I encountered with this game. Some of the characters have the ability to trap enemies, which can be a really useful tool in combat. They Should Watch Their Step requires you to capitalize on that and trap 20 enemies, which sounds very easy on paper. I spent 3 hours trying to do this in every combat sequence I encountered, but for some reason, I couldn't get it to work. I was holding the right button, I even checked it in the settings, but Katara would just stand there, menacingly. I have no idea if this was a bug or I didn't actually have access to the trap move yet, but when the AI took over with Katara, she was trapping with ease, so homophobia? Eventually, once I'd upgraded the trap ability with a waterbending scroll, this seemed to fix itself, and the trophy was really easy to unlock after that. We then spent a couple of hours progressing through the story and rounded out Book 2 by defeating Zuko and Azula, earning Fire and Lightning Fizzle for our trouble. I've gotta say, for all of the flaws that this game has, of which there are many, by the way, and I will be covering them later, one of the best things about it is how chunky the game actually is. I expected to finish the story in no more than 10 hours, but I was around 8 hours in and still had one more book to work through. It probably sounds silly to you that I'm celebrating something like that, but honestly, you gotta take the good where you can get it with this game. And speaking of the good, our next trophy is by far the best one of the game. Throughout your travels, you'll regularly encounter this fine gentleman, who I'm sure needs no introduction. And yes, you can do it. Mwah! Beautiful. Once we've smashed 10 of the cabbage carts, which didn't take me long at all for obvious reasons, we unlock the aptly named My Cabbages! I've talked a lot about the combat and exploration sections of this game, so let's touch on the other 2 I mentioned earlier, starting with the pathic bending challenges. These are essentially mini puzzles that will often unlock a new bending ability, whilst also teaching Aang some philosophy pertinent to the story, delivered by this very well animated man. More often than not, the abilities you're taught will be activated by interacting with one of these discs that can be found on the floor, with the symbol representing which character can do so. By interacting with 20 different objects, we unlock Gotta Touch 'em all? Did I read that right? Oh, I did. Look, I know that's probably a reference to Pokemon for whatever reason, but did no one on the dev team pick up on any sus vibes with that name? No? Just me who needs to go have a chat with Jesus? Yeah, alright, fair enough. let's just move on. The final gameplay section to talk about is the the animal races. I'm just going to show you what these look like. Why does it sound hollow? Like they recorded opera in a damn tin can or something. Oops.
They got us, buddy.
What? No, they didn't. What do you mean?
Oh, no.
I'm not. What do you mean? What do you mean? Ah! I'm not hitting it. You're having a laugh. You're actually just having me on. This is all a big joke. I did not think it was possible for a game to include a section in which you're flying on opera and turn it into one of the worst things about the game, but here we are. There are a couple of these races to complete in each book, and once we've done so and collected more than 75% of the coins in each, we unlock GANGBUSTER Gatherer. We also unlock the pleasure of knowing I will never have to play them again. Or so I thought. More on that later. For anyone unfamiliar with the Avatar series, one of the main story arcs features Aang learning to bend each of the elements in order to attain the status of the Avatar. I thought the game would see us actually learning how to wield each one, but instead we just get told that Aang can now use each of them after a cutscene. If by this point you haven't understood just how disappointing this game really is, I'm sure you do now. About halfway through Book 3, Aang learns firebending, and we're awarded with Bending Master. And then, not long after that, we unlock our final playable character, as well as the trophy, The Gang's All Here. The game features 12 playable characters overall, each of whom have their own skill tree to upgrade, and are all available to play as freely during the free mode portion of the game, which we'll get into in just a second. But before we do, it's time to defeat the final boss fight and complete the story.
No, you can't take my power! You can't!
In the era before the Avatar, we bent not the elements, but the energy within ourselves.
What, in the Dead Space? Oh, sorry. Spoilers! With the story now officially complete, it's time for us to jump back into the levels in free mode and track down the remaining collectibles and trophy challenges. Not that we have much choice, the game just takes away the story mode option once you've completed it. No, I don't know why. Our first stop is tackling the various spirit trials that we've unlocked in the main menu. These basically take various sections of the game that we've already encountered and make you play through them again with an extra twist. For example, this one requires you to play through the upper animal race again, but without any checkpoints and with the goal of collecting at least 90 coins, because it was so much fun the first time. Most of these trials are fairly easy to complete, and some are actually quite fun, like this one in which we can't attack and have to use the enemy's own tanks against them. But then there were some trials which were the definition of a nightmare. The main one I really had difficulty with required me to protect a villager from attackers with the blue spirit for a set amount of time. But no matter what I did, I could not complete this challenge. I got so good with the combat that I was going ham on these idiots, and yet I would fail again and again and again. How did I eventually complete it? Instead of going on the attack, I just continuously knocked down the close range enemies and then used my own body to shield the villager from the long range attacks. And once it was done, I unlocked... You call that a challenge? I never thought that I wouldn't feel good when unlocking a trophy. But this one, after everything I went through and how I eventually managed to win, it just didn't feel good at all. With that finally out of the way, our main focus was on hopping back into each chapter, finishing off any side quests that we missed, and locating each chest in the game. I knew this was going to require a good chunk of time sunk into it, so I got to work and picked up a few more trophies along the way. By jumping back into the boss fights at the end of each chapter and defeating 3 of them without taking a single hit, we unlock Can't Touch Me. This trophy sounded incredibly daunting when I first started up the game, But the first few bosses were actually really easy once I understood the mechanics, and it didn't pose that much of a challenge in the end. Thankfully, because I had no idea how much I could go through after those spirit trials. A couple of really simple trophies to pick up were Later MOMO, which we earned for completing each of the 4 MOMO races throughout the game, and Fire and Family, which required you to play with a friend, with one of you as Zuko and one as Iroh. In reality, for this one, you don't actually need to play with a friend, as just selecting the local co-op option and assigning those 2 characters to each player will pop the trophy. Which is great news if, like me, you have no friends. Back to the collectibles, and one of the things the game requires you to find are statues. In every level there is one to be discovered and created by an element bender, revealing an animal statue of some description. I had actually found most of these through my gameplay of the story, and the remaining few weren't hard to seek out at all. By sculpting this gorgeous Momo out of a block of ice, we complete the challenge and earn Statuesque. In our pursuit of opening every chest in the game, we also had to find and unlock every secret room and treasure room across the chapters. Normally these would be unlocked as part of a side quest, or by using Toph to find and break a wall, and can normally be identified with the characters fawning over how much cool stuff they found inside. Whilst completing my final side quest of the game, I also stumbled onto the final secret room, earning myself Investigation Bender. The side quest in question required me to find 4 toy planes that someone had lost in the Air Temple. Once I had done so and returned them all to him, our next trophy popped. Beat all quests. Wow, they really went in on the creative naming for that one, didn't they? The finish line was well in sight by this point, and I was getting excited to finally being able to shut down this game for the last time and never touch it again. All that was standing between me and that moment were 3 more trophies before the platinum. Whilst finding and opening the chests, we were also finding pay-show tiles within them. I mentioned earlier that these were used as the upgrade currency for each character's skill tree, and about halfway through combing through the chapters for chests, we finally had enough to purchase the last Iroh upgrade and unlock Positively Perky. At this point, because I'd been at it for a couple of hours and now had everything I needed to unlock the penultimate trophy, I decided to take a quick break from the chest hunting and mop up that one instead. Thankfully, it was an easy one. All I had to do was load up a boss fight as Aang and, with my now fully maxed out scroll and skill tree abilities, win the fight and unlock Pumped Up Punishment. 1 trophy left. I was buzzing at this point and didn't waste any time loading up the next chapter in my chest hunting, chapter 10. But then, disaster. Are we trapped?
I couldn't hold on.
You have failed, Avatar.
Oh my god. Okay, so this is really fun. I am locked out of completing the platinum. Okay, so basically when you start chapter 10, when you first load up free mode, you can go into it again from the beginning. It loads you right back at the beginning, right? So when you, sorry, I'm getting over it. When you first load in to the level and then the free mode, you load into Ba Sing Se, you load into this area here, okay? Now I went through this and I went through and I got all of the quests, but I know that I missed some chests because I was thinking, oh, I'll just do those at the end. I'll have my notebook here with all my scribbles on it about where the chests are and how many in each level and all of that, and I'll do all of that kind of more boring stuff at the end. I get to chapter 10, and because I've already completed it in free mode, it spawns me here, which is the end of the level. So I come to this section and I have a little fight here, and then to open that door when you're on the other side, you have to activate 2 levers. I cannot activate those levers right now. Another thing I can't do is teleport to another location. So, for example, I couldn't teleport to the beach or Ba Sing Se. I can't do anything. And then when I exit and I go to main menu and I'm on chapter 10, Lake Laogai, there's nothing here to restart the level, to start it from a specific point. When you click to go into it, it just brings up, are you ready to start this chapter? I click yes, and you'll see where it loads me in a second. Right back here. The game developers didn't design a system where you can get back to old locations in free mode. And they didn't design a system where you can access specific parts of the level in free mode. You get one shot in free mode. And that's it. And if you miss something there... So I am locked out of the chest trophy. I cannot get it. The only way for me to complete this challenge and unlock the platinum trophy would be to completely delete all of my saved data and restart the game from scratch. But after already sinking over 20 hours into it and experiencing some of the worst gameplay I'd ever come across, I just didn't have it in me anymore. And so, in a first for this channel, I must hang up my controller and admit defeat to Avatar: The Last Airbender, A Quest for Balance. Alright, let's talk about the game. I've always been told that I should start with the positives before the negatives. So what did I actually enjoy about this game? Surprisingly, there were a few things. I really liked that we had multiple characters to play as throughout the game, and we didn't just stick with the main four, which the devs could have easily defaulted to. It made the combat sections somewhat varied, but mainly just invoked a sense of nostalgia and a slight geek out every time I unlocked a new one. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the game is huge. I racked up over 20 hours and still wasn't completely done with my run, so it definitely didn't feel like a blink and you'll miss it experience. Admittedly, the gameplay sections did become a bit repetitive after a while, which may turn that point into a negative, but... come on guys, like I'm really trying here. Screw it, let's move on to the negatives. Where do I even start? The game is slated as simply being a retelling of the story, which it is, but the way it's retold is absolutely mind-boggling. For example, one of the chapters starts with us hunting for frogs to cure Sokka and Katara, but at the end of the previous chapter, there was no mention of either character being sick. So, why are we doing this? And the game never explains it, by the way. No, the sequence ends with Aang being captured and Blue Spirit having to rescue him. This is just one instance of the developers clearly requiring the player to have a pre-established knowledge of the story they're retelling. It's why I didn't want to recount the story in this video, because it just doesn't make sense. Also, the sequences they choose to cover in gameplay and the ones they just mentioned in passing through narration were completely disjointed. There were so many times where I wanted to play those stories rather than the ones we'd been given. And speaking of the sections we're given, how did Subway Surfers make its way into Avatar? In fact, when you really think about it, there are multiple aspects of this game which just feel like they've been pulled straight out of a mobile game of some sort. And each one is a dull experience. Whether you're trying to beat an animal race and dealing with wonky hitboxes, or completing your 17,000th sliding puzzle of the day, it all just makes you question, why? The best way I can describe this entire gameplay experience is that the devs took the core structure of the LEGO games and then combined that with various mobile games to create Avatar: Quest for Balance. And as it turns out, this is not a good combination. And the combat, oh my god, the combat. Never in my life have I come across a combat system as bad as the one in this game. The lock-on system was absolute garbage, and had you focused on a random enemy in the back of the group most of the time. You would frequently be stun-locked and pummeled by constant enemy attacks with no way of stopping them, And then, to make all of it even worse, the devs decided to include combat-based challenges in the trophies and the spirit trials, as if it was something that they were actually proud of? Honestly, the combat alone would be enough for me to never recommend this game to anyone. I could genuinely make a whole video of everything that's wrong with this game and why it all makes for a terrible player experience, and maybe I will someday. But for now, the best way I can sum it up is that this game takes a beloved IP into video game format and fumbles the bag so hard that you find yourself questioning whether it was all just a cash grab. For the record, I don't think it was. Every negative thing I encountered, I could put down to being an aspect of poor development or a strange creative choice. But the game never felt empty, as if the devs were just phoning it in. It was a full game, but the issue is, it was filled with all the wrong things. So what about the trophies? Well, aside from that one, the trophies were actually a breeze, and mostly what you'd expect from this type of game. I think I would have liked more ones to unlock that were similar to My Cabbages, references to iconic moments in the series, but the overall hunt wasn't a bad or a difficult one at all. Once you'd scraped your way through the combat related trophies, the rest were a breeze, and just required a bit of grinding to unlock. Quest for Balance is the first game on this channel that I haven't been able to complete, and honestly, I'm not even mad about it. In fact, I actually find it quite funny. It feels like the perfect end to this hunt, almost as if actually achieving the platinum would have been wrong in some way. Maybe in the future I'll return to it and complete that final hurdle, but for now, my hunt will remain at 91% completed. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please let me know by leaving a like and a comment down below. Also, if you would like to see more games like this, ones that are either absolutely terrible or horrendously difficult, from me on this channel, let me know in the comments which ones. And subscribe to the channel for a brand new Endorphin Hunt every single week. Have a great day and happy hunting.